Claire raised her wine glass and said it like it was some cute inside joke. To my son Tyler, the real man of the house. It hung in the air like a fart in church. There were 6 of us at that table. Me, Claire, our friends George and Helena, and 2 new neighbors Claire was trying to impress. The neighbors smiled politely. George gave a soft, low chuckle, the kind that says, "Please don't involve me." Helena shot me a glance. Pity, not sympathy. I set down my fork, dabbed the corner of my mouth with the napkin. Good to know where I stand. Listen, quick break. We set a goal to hit 10K subscribers. So tap subscribe if you're liking these wild stories of betrayal. Now let's get back to the madness. Claire didn't miss a beat. She twirled her hair like a damn cheerleader and said, "Oh, come on. You've always known. Tyler comes first. You're always second." She laughed, and the table followed her cue like trained seals. I laughed too. Just once. Dry. Controlled. Appreciate the clarity. But if you looked at my eyes, you'd notice I wasn't laughing. Not even close. The waiter came by with the check, and Claire snatched it like always, waved my card at him like a trophy. "Ron spoils me," she said, without a flicker of irony. And maybe she thought that was enough. Throw in a compliment here, and they're like a dog treat for staying silent. That night, back home, she FaceTimed Tyler from bed. She was half drunk, legs sprawled across the comforter I paid for, giggling while he told her about his new tattoo. "It's your name in Roman numerals, Mom. Across my ribs." She squealed. "You're so thoughtful, baby." I walked past her side of the bed and into my office. Sat down. Opened my laptop. I didn't Google divorce attorneys. That would have been too dramatic for this stage. Instead, I opened a folder on my desktop I hadn't touched in 6 months. It was titled Line Drawn. Inside were scanned PDFs of our property deeds, my trust documents, joint accounts, her prenup copy, even a spreadsheet I'd made of every dollar that had come out of my account and landed in Tyler's freeloading hands over the last 7 years. I'd logged the cash for his car repairs, the investments that went nowhere, the bailouts on his credit card debt, the $2,400 bridge loan that Claire swore he'd pay back within 2 weeks. That was in 2019. Line by line, I updated the spreadsheet with that night's dinner tab. Then I pulled a sticky note from my desk drawer, one of those old yellow ones curling at the edges. On it, in blue ballpoint pen, I wrote, "You're always second." I folded it neatly, slid it into a blank envelope, and tucked it under my mousepad. That wasn't for her. That was for me. Around midnight, Claire tiptoed in and slid into bed like nothing happened. I could smell her Chardonnay breath from across the room. "You're mad," she said, not really asking. I shook my head. "Nope. Just thinking." She rolled over with a sigh. "Don't be sensitive. You know how I feel about Tyler. You knew that when we got married." I did. I looked up from my laptop. "But you've changed the definition of family since then, and I'm updating my files accordingly." She didn't hear me or didn't care to. She was already snoring. Her phone still lit up every few minutes with messages from Tyler. Probably photos of that stupid tattoo. I watched her sleep, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilt. I felt something closer to relief, because I realized I'd let myself get demoted. I'd volunteered for the back seat and hoped she'd notice, but she hadn't. She just got comfortable in the driver's seat, with Tyler in her lap, honking the damn horn. Not anymore. When I finally turned out the light, I didn't kiss her goodnight. I just closed the laptop, leaned back in the chair, and stared at the ceiling fan. It spun slowly, rhythmic, thoughtful, and so was I. The bank door chimed that soft corporate chime as I stepped in the next morning, one of those subtle little sounds that says, "Welcome, old man. Here's your financial dignity." I nodded at the receptionist. She recognized me. Everyone here did. That was the point. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even tense. I'd worn my usual Friday golf jacket, that quiet gray one Claire always said made me look like a walking retirement plan. Ironic, given I was about to make sure she'd never touch mine again. "Mr. Hanley, right this way," the banker said, stepping out from behind his glass cubicle. Robert, not Bob, never Bob, was the kind of guy who wore a pocket square unironically and had that permanent whiff of cologne that whispered, "Divorce attorney's best friend." We sat down. He offered me water. I declined. I pulled out a slim manila folder and laid it on the desk between us. Neat. Prepared. Final. I need to make a few changes. Robert raised an eyebrow. Of course. Anything specific? I nodded, flipped open the folder. Inside were updated entity documents, new LLC paperwork, trust restructuring instructions, and a revised will still unsigned, for now. I handed him the retirement trust first. I'd like to revoke Claire's beneficiary rights to this, I said. Effective immediately. She still gets the annuity access we arranged in the prenup. That doesn't change. Robert frowned, professional but clearly curious. That's a major revision. Is everything okay? Just doing some spring cleaning, I said, with the softest smile I could muster. I realized I'd been running a joint operation with someone who prefers solo control. He tilted his head. And the LLC? That's for the house in Santa Fe. The one under both our names. I'm moving my share into a single-member LLC. Tax protection and asset clarity. Robert blinked, then nodded. You know you don't need her signature for that. Just yours, as long as you're only moving your stake. I know. I passed him the pre-filled title transfer forms. And we never actually recorded her half separately on the deed. It was implied, not official. That's changing today. He stared at me for a moment like a priest about to ask whether I really wanted to confess all this. But instead, he just said, You want to set up a new operating account for the LLC? I did. So we did. I didn't touch a single account with her name on it. Not our checking. Not the mortgage account. Not her personal investments. Let her have her empire of favors and overdrafts and phone calls that start with, Babe, can you? My kingdom would be silent. Legally locked. We moved methodically. Signature after signature. Pins. Disclosures. The notary came in for the deed and the trust form updates. I smiled at her like we were finalizing a vacation rental, not cutting off the oxygen to a marriage. As Robert handed me the final document to sign, he hesitated. You sure you don't want to have this conversation with her first? I looked at him flatly. Robert, last night she toasted her grown man child as the real man of the house, while I paid the dinner bill and smiled. If that doesn't count as a conversation, I don't know what does. He gave a tight nod. Respectful. Almost impressed. By the time I left, I had everything I needed tucked into a single folder, new entity ownership, updated beneficiaries, and an account structure that would be harder to pierce than a federal safe. Claire didn't know it yet, but the game board had shifted. The chair she thought she was sitting in? Gone. Replaced. And she wouldn't notice until she tried to lean back and fell. As I stepped back out into the parking lot, the sun was already high. A beautiful Friday. Bright. Quiet. Unbothered. Just like I planned to be. Tyler strutted into my house like he'd just discovered fire. Aviators still on indoors, wireless earbuds in, leather jacket zipped all the way up like he thought he was auditioning for Shark Tank, Juvenile Edition. He dropped himself onto the living room couch, without so much as a hello, and said the 6 words I've come to associate with unpaid debts and migraines. I've got a killer new idea. I didn't say a word. Just took a slow sip of my coffee and waited for the usual pitch/begging routine. Claire came bustling in right after him with that grin she saves for moments when she thinks she's about to witness a breakthrough. She kissed him on the head like he was 9 again and said, Tell Ron what you told me. Tyler popped one earbud out. Okay, so, listen, this isn't like the crypto thing, all right? This is actually legit. I've got a friend who knows this guy in logistics, like actual freight brokering. And we're going to launch a platform that connects short-haul drivers with underloaded suppliers. Real-time. Disruptive tech. Claire nodded like he just cured ALS. Then Tyler leaned forward and said it like it was nothing. I need, like, a small loan. 25 grand. He sipped from the bottle of sparkling water he hadn't asked permission to open. That was his version of polite. And Claire, God help her, she didn't hesitate. Of course, sweetheart. We'll figure it out. Right, honey? She turned to me like I was a bank manager who'd been briefed off camera. I didn't look at her. I looked at him. Show me the business plan. Tyler blinked. What? You're asking for $25,000, I said calmly, setting my coffee down. You must have a plan. Market research, financial projections, cash flow model. Show me. He blinked again. Harder this time. Dude, Ron. I'm not pitching to a venture capitalist. I'm family. That's exactly why I'm asking, I said, leaning back into the armchair. Because if you weren't, I'd already be calling security. He laughed. At first. That cocky little snort he uses when someone tells him something inconvenient. You're unbelievable. Claire's mouth hung open. Ron. No. I cut in, still calm. He's asked for money 6 times in 5 years. Not once has he paid $1 back. Last time, you said it was the last time, remember? Tyler stood. I don't need this. I'll figure it out myself. I'm sure you will, I replied. That's how real men build businesses. His jaw clenched. Claire looked at me like I'd slapped her. You don't support him. You never have, she snapped. All you do is criticize. I nodded slowly. And all he does is ask for more. You've raised a resume with a pulse, Claire. Not a man. Tyler's face flushed red. I don't have to take this. Good, I said. Because I'm done giving it. He stormed out the front door, muttering something about toxic energy. Claire followed a beat later. No purse, no jacket. Just rage, and that maternal autopilot she always defaults to. She shot me one last glare as she grabbed the handle. You are unbelievable, Ron. And then she was gone. The front door clicked shut. I didn't move. The silence that followed was beautiful. I picked up my coffee again, took another sip, and looked over at the little side table where a yellow envelope still sat under my mousepad. I could have sent it then. I could have burned the whole thing down in that moment. But no. Let them play. Let them dance around the fire. I'd already moved the gasoline. It was a Tuesday morning when George called. Not the kind of call you expect before your second cup of coffee. He didn't even say hello. Just led with, "Did you hear about Tyler?" That's how you know it's bad. When your friend skips the pleasantries and assumes you're already in the loop of your stepson's latest disaster. No, I said, setting down my mug. What about him? George hesitated. He totaled a car. DUI. Nobody hurt. Thank God. But here's the kicker. The car's in Claire's name. I paused. Claire doesn't own a car like that. He borrowed it. On paper, it's a lease under her. Insurance lapsed 2 months ago. Owners pressing charges because technically it wasn't supposed to be loaned out at all. It's a mess. I sat there for a long second, letting it soak in like motor oil into pavement. Claire hadn't said a word. Not last night, not over breakfast, not even in passing while she told me all about Tyler's upcoming pitch to some seed investor. Nothing. And now this. George cleared his throat. Figured you knew already. My bad. No, George, I said, reaching for a pen. You're the first to tell me, and I appreciate it. He hung up a few minutes later. I stayed seated, staring out the window, watching 2 squirrels fight over a bird feeder I hadn't refilled in weeks. The kind of meaningless little drama you ignore until one of them chews through your power line. I didn't confront Claire. Didn't mention it. That night, she made us dinner chicken something, heavy on the cream sauce. She was talkative, upbeat, almost too upbeat. Her eyes flicked toward mine every now and then, like she was checking for signs. Signs of what? I couldn't tell. Guilt? Suspicion? Or just hoping I hadn't heard yet? I'm thinking of surprising Tyler with a weekend trip, she said mid-bite. Just mother-son time. You know, before he gets all busy with the startup. I nodded, chewing slowly. Sounds good. He could use a break. She smiled. Relieved. It was fascinating. The calm before a collapse. Later that night, after she went to bed, I went into the den and opened the folder again. Line drawn. I didn't need to do much. Just one revision. A clean stroke on a document I'd already updated 3 times this month. My will. There used to be a contingency line. In the event of Claire Hanley's predeceasing me, the following assets shall be transferred to her son, Tyler James. That line had once been a gesture of goodwill. A bone toss to the idea of family unity. I removed it. No second thoughts. No anger. Just a quiet flick of the mouse, a save, and a printed copy filed into the new stack marked final. I then emailed the revised version to my attorney with the subject line, updated per current circumstances. No explanation. He wouldn't need one. Claire didn't ask why I didn't come to bed that night. She assumed I was in one of my moods. She'd learned long ago not to poke when I went quiet, mistaking silence for submission. But silence has flavors. And this one? This one tasted like leverage. Because she hadn't told me about the accident. Because she was waiting to see if I'd offer. Because she already knew the answer. And she wasn't ready to hear it out loud. The phone started ringing at 8:43 a.m. Not once. Not twice. 16 times. Back to back. I watched it buzz from the kitchen counter as I sliced through a Honeycrisp, each ring stacking over the next like a pileup on a highway. Claire, mobile, it flashed, insistent. I let it buzz. By the seventh ring, I'd finished slicing the apple and set the knife down beside the sink. By the 12th, I was pouring myself coffee. The voicemail pinged just as I stirred in the cream. She didn't lead with hi, didn't lead with please. Her voice was tight, frayed at the edges. Ron, it's urgent. Tyler's bail's been set. 15,000. He can't stay there. This is a mistake. You know he's not a bad person. He just panicked. Please, call me back. She didn't hang up. She just trailed off like a dial tone, then silence. I sat down, coffee in one hand, her voice lingering in the other. 10 minutes later, a text came through. Just a photo, a partially filled out liquidation form for an annuity we'd opened 5 years ago, back when she still called us partners. I knew that annuity. It was hers, technically. But at the time, my signature had been required to initiate it under the joint tax shelter structure. The form was missing just one thing, my signature. Then came the next message. It's in both our names. You just need to sign. I'll fill in the rest. Please. I didn't reply. 2 hours passed. By noon, I'd received an email from the notary service she used. Routine, impersonal. A form rejection. Transaction incomplete. Cosigner unavailable. There was a PDF attached. She'd filled everything out except the signature line and uploaded my old digital initials from another document. Tried to preload them into the e-signature slot. Sloppy. Desperate. I forwarded the email to my attorney with one line. No action. Just FYI. Another call. This one from a number I didn't recognize, local area code, but masked. Voicemail again. Ron, it's Claire. They won't release him without it. You can just sign electronically. You don't even have to speak to me. I'm not asking you to pay. I'm just asking you to help me unlock what's already mine. Please. She emphasized mine like that would make me flinch. I didn't. Instead, I opened the drawer in my study and pulled out the folder again. Not the legal one, another one. Older. Thinner. Inside it were photos. Photos from Tyler's launch party last year. The one where he announced a startup that never started, raised $0, and somehow still found the budget to host an open bar and hire a DJ. I'd gone, stupidly. Posed in one photo, half smiling next to Claire while Tyler gave a speech slurring halfway through. Another voicemail hit my phone. This one wasn't Claire. It was Tyler. Look, man, Ron. I know we've had, friction or whatever. But this is serious, all right? You've got the power to make this go away. Don't be petty. He hung up before the minute mark. Not even a thank you baked into the manipulation. I didn't call back. I didn't text. I just picked up the remote and flipped on the news. There it was, bottom ticker. Local man arrested in DUI crash faces felony property damage. They hadn't used his name yet, but they would, eventually. And when they did, it wouldn't be a family crisis. It would be a press release. So I muted the volume, leaned back, and let the silence do what it always does best. Answer. The first 12 calls I ignored. By the time the 16th came through, I had already silenced the phone and left it face down on the kitchen table. The screen lit up like a strobe every few minutes, vibrating across the wood until it finally gave up and sat still. I didn't move. I was on the porch, watching dust crawl over the lawn. Another call came through while I was pouring bourbon. Claire again. Then Tyler. Then a number I didn't recognize, some bail bondsman's office, probably. The kind of place where dreams go to die slowly in fluorescent lighting. By nightfall, the number stood at 28 missed calls. 12 from Claire. 7 from Tyler. The rest were an ugly bouquet of unknowns and desperation. I opened the voicemail app. I don't know why, curiosity maybe, or just the part of me that wanted to hear how low they'd been their knees. The first message was Claire's, voice trembling with artificial fury. Ron, you can't just ignore this. Tyler's your family too. You helped raise him. You loved him. This isn't you. This is spiteful. You're punishing me through him, and it's cruel. Don't do this. I listened, silent, then pressed delete. The second message was Tyler's, more venom than voice. I swear to God, you're pathetic. You act like some stoic big man, but you're just bitter. You think this makes you strong? It makes you weak. You're nothing to me. Never were. Delete. The third was Claire again, trying a different tactic. I don't even need the full amount, just something to get the process moving. I'm selling the Lexus, but I need time. Please, Ron. I know we've said things, but I still do. Delete. The fourth. I didn't even listen to. I saved that energy. Instead, I opened the audio app on my phone and scrolled down to a file I hadn't touched since the night I labeled that folder line drawn. A voice memo. 32 seconds long. It played quietly through the speaker as I stared into the darkness. Claire's voice. Tipsy. Sharp. Recorded while she stood in the kitchen on a call with a friend I never liked. Some divorcee named Dana who believed therapy could be replaced with red wine and retail. Ron? Oh, come on. He's like an old sweater. Familiar, sure. Comfortable, fine. But Tyler? Tyler matters. Ron doesn't. He never really did. He just came with the house. I listened to that sentence again. And again. He just came with the house. I'd recorded it by accident while testing the voice memo app one day. Meant to delete it. Forgot. But when I replayed it weeks later, I saved it. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Because that moment, the casual cruelty of it, had stripped away every inch of gray. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I wasn't after revenge. Not really. I was just done feeding people who sharpened their knives at my table. I closed the app, stood, and walked back into the house. The phone blinked once more. Another voicemail. Another plea. Another rope tossed from the deck of a sinking ship. I didn't answer. Let them drown in the echo they created. She came in like weather, fast, loud, and without warning. It was just past 11 a.m. when I looked up from the quarterly portfolio review and saw her through the glass wall of my office. Claire. Hair a mess. No makeup. Eyes wide with the kind of desperation that makes people clench their purses in public. She didn't ask to be let in. Didn't check in with the receptionist. She just stormed through the floor like she still had a key to my world. One of the interns tried to stop her. Poor kid looked like he was about to cry. She brushed past him and slammed my door open so hard it hit the coat rack behind it. You blocked the account. I didn't flinch. Didn't look up right away either. Just finished underlining a line item on the report in front of me. Then I looked at her. Morning, Claire. She was shaking. From anger, or adrenaline, or maybe just the come down of realizing charm and tears weren't working anymore. You son of a bitch, she hissed. I needed that money. I leaned back in my chair. Which money? The annuity. You know which. I had it lined up. I had the buyer. Now it's stalled and I've got calls from bond officers, and she caught herself, glancing around. My assistant, 2 associates, and 1 HR rep had all poked their heads out of offices like meerkats. Phones weren't ringing. Keyboards weren't clacking. Silence had made itself comfortable. Claire turned back to me, breath hitching. I stood by you when your back went out, remember? 3 months you couldn't walk, and I was there. You owe me. That last part came out like a screech. Like she thought if she made the word loud enough, it would manifest into truth. I looked at her for a long second. Long enough for her to think I might soften. I didn't. Instead, I stood slowly. Not angry. Just measured. You stood by me, I said quietly, while standing on me. Dead silence. I saw something flicker in her eyes. Shame. Or maybe recognition. But before it could calcify into regret, I looked past her and said, Sam, would you please call building security? Claire's mouth dropped open. Are you kidding me? I didn't respond. Just gathered my papers into a stack and clipped them together neatly. The same way you might do before ending a meeting you know you'll never reschedule. She spun to the room behind her. Seriously? You're all just going to watch him do this? I gave up everything for him. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. One woman picked up her phone, not to call, but to film. That was when Claire realized where she was. Not at home. Not in private. Not in a place where Tyler's name made people bend. Here, she was just noise. Security arrived 4 minutes later. By then, she'd gone quiet. But it didn't matter. They escorted her through the office, 2 calm, firm men in navy jackets. She didn't resist. Just kept muttering under her breath. The video went up on a local Facebook community group within hours. Wife goes nuclear in office meltdown. Over 14,000 views before dinner. The comments weren't kind. One said, imagine being this unhinged because your husband cut off the gravy train. Another, that man's calm gave me chills. Legend. I didn't comment. I didn't share. I didn't even like the post, but I watched it. Twice. And when Claire called again that night, I didn't answer. She had her audience already. She just didn't like the reviews. The dining room at the club was warm with low laughter, the hum of good scotch, and the clink of silverware on china. 12 of us sat at a long table under a vaulted ceiling, friends, colleagues, old golf partners, and one neighbor who still mailed birthday cards. They toasted with a mix of ribbing and affection. 64 years old, they said. Still upright, still sharp. Not a soul asked where Claire was. Because they knew. Or rather, they understood enough to stop asking. When the waiter came around with the second bottle of Macallan, I leaned back in my chair and let it all wash over me. The low jazz, the smell of butter-seared filet, the faint whisper of someone's story about a fishing trip that ended with a broken reel and 2 hours of silence in the truck ride home. Real stories. For men who'd been broken and patched themselves up without needing applause. Halfway through dessert, my phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. I let it sit there for a moment. The hum against my chest reminded me of a different kind of silence, the kind that had ruled my house for years. The kind you mistake for peace until you realize it's just resignation. After coffee, I excused myself and stepped outside to the patio. The sky was deepening into that purple-gray dusk that makes you think of final acts. I pulled out my phone and checked the screen. Tyler, can't believe you threw a party and didn't invite Mom. You're disgusting. The message didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was how fast my thumbs moved. Ron. Second place doesn't pay. That was it. No anger. No flourish. Just truth. I watched the message send. Delivered. Read. 2 minutes later, someone screenshotted it. I know because one of Claire's friends, Debbie, from her yoga studio, forwarded me the image that same night, along with a message. Just so you know, it's all over the wine and wellness group chat. Mixed reactions. But mostly, applause. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The screenshot made its way from phone to phone faster than any apology Claire ever managed in our marriage. It hit group chats, Facebook Messenger threads. A couple of friends in the club showed it to each other mid-toast like it was a secret weapon. One guy leaned over to me, eyes twinkling. That was cold, he said. I mean that as a compliment. The text was everywhere by morning. Tyler tried to spin it, of course, said I was heartless, manipulative, bitter. But even his usual defenders were quieter than usual. Because deep down, they remembered Claire's smug little toasts. The digs. The way she always called me practical, which was her version of calling me dull. The way she once joked, Ron's retirement plan is me, and laughed like she'd invented humor. Now, that crowd was shifting. Some women stopped calling. Others texted me behind her back. You deserve better. Always liked you more. She's always acted like the room was hers. One even sent me a photo of an old Christmas party. I was standing by the piano. Claire was across the room, ignoring me entirely. The caption just said, "Funny what you start to see in hindsight." That night, I sat in the living room with a glass of scotch, watching the fire dance in the hearth. I didn't play music, didn't turn on the TV, just sat with the silence. But this silence? It didn't feel like resignation. It felt like freedom. The arraignment happened on a Wednesday. Rain, of course. Nothing poetic, just the miserable kind that makes courthouse stairs feel steeper. Tyler stood in front of the judge in a wrinkled blazer someone clearly lent him that morning. His lawyer, a public defender barely old enough to shave, tried to make the case that Tyler was rebuilding his life, that the DUI was a wake-up call, and that bail should reflect his strong community ties. The prosecutor laughed. Literally. On record. Because Tyler's community record was a stack of past due notices, failed LLC filings, and one documented incident of screaming at a rental manager for charging him cleaning fees. The crash alone had resulted in nearly 20 grand in damages, and the car, technically leased in Claire's name, had violated its usage terms in 5 different ways. The judge didn't need long. Bail is set at $30,000. The gavel cracked. Tyler blinked hard. Claire, seated behind the bar, gasped. She reached for her purse like it held 30 grand in rolled-up 20s. She tried to whisper to the attorney. He shook his head. They weren't talking payment plans. That night, she called everyone. Again. Siblings. Old friends. Her hairstylist. The yoga teacher with the podcast. Anyone who had once clinked a wine glass and called her soul sister. No one answered. One friend finally texted back. I can't loan money I won't get back. I hope you understand. Claire was spiraling. The Lexus went up for sale on Craigslist before midnight. Price to move. She sent a group text out at 1:04 a.m. with a photo of the listing. Selling my car. Need cash urgently. If you know anyone, please share. By morning, a buyer responded. Cash offer. Coming that day. She texted Tyler at 7:43 a.m. We're going to get you out. I promise. She texted me at 7:45 a.m. You're letting your pride hurt my child. This isn't who you are. Please. I read it while folding laundry. Matching socks. Calmly. At 9:12 a.m., she messaged again. He's scared. He's not eating. Just sign the damn form, Ron. But I wasn't at home anymore. I was in the car. Driving. Nowhere in particular, just around. Letting the wind pull through the crack in the window while I played jazz from the 60s. The stuff I never got to play in the house because she called it elevator music. At 10:37 a.m., the buyer canceled. His bank flagged something about a lien mismatch. Claire texted him 4 times. He ghosted. At 11:04, she called again. 5 times. Then once more from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. By noon, I was at a diner I liked. One she always said smelled like grease and regret. I ordered the club sandwich. Took my time. Finished every bite. Then I opened my phone and drafted the message. No venom. No flourish. Just this. You wanted to stand on your own. So stand. Sent. Read. No reply. I set the phone face down and paid in cash. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sun broke through just enough to catch in the wet pavement. Reflections everywhere. Everything upside down, but clear. It was just past midnight when the phone buzzed. Once, then again. Then it rang. Claire. I let it ring once. Twice. I almost didn't answer. Not out of spite. Just tired of reruns. But something in me wanted to hear it. Not for closure. Not even for satisfaction. Just to mark the end with something concrete. A voice. A final scream in the dark. I picked up on the 4th ring. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask if I was awake. She just exploded. Wet, frantic, feral. He's in jail, Ron. He's been in there for 3 days. He's your stepson, for God's sake. What is wrong with you? I sat in the dark, the phone cold against my cheek. Her voice cracked. Screeched. You could hear the mascara running through the receiver. You're just going to let him rot? You cold. Empty. Man. She broke into sobs mid-sentence, the kind that hiccup and twist into rage again. I could picture her in their old kitchen, the one I renovated, pacing in circles with the cordless phone against her ear like it was a lifeline she was slowly strangling herself with. You helped raise him, she shrieked. You taught him to drive. He called you Ron Dad when he was little. You think that means nothing. I waited. Not long. Just enough to let the silence press between us like a weight. Then I exhaled. Claire, I said quietly, almost kindly. You said I'm second place. She stopped. Nothing but a thin static hum between us now. No crying. No yelling. Just that. So I finished. And second place doesn't pay. Click. The line went dead. No final gasp. No threat. No apology. Just silence. And this time, she didn't call back.